It is a pleasure to be here. I have often heard, and I know our organization has participated in SOCAP many years, but this is my first time being here, so I'm really excited to get to be a part of this and share a little bit of time with all of you, and just talk a little bit about shifting the prism, right? And the idea is not that I'm encouraging people to take foolhardy risks, but instead to encourage people to take small risks on the margin, right? And think about what you hold dear and how you make those decisions. Laura started bringing in your personal life. I'm not here to give you advice or to explain risk to you in your personal life. That's probably a bridge too far. But I do want to just think about professionally what that looks like. And for me, it really starts with thinking about a story. About 10 years ago, my niece called me. I've had a long career in financial services. She caught me on the train. I was on the way from Washington, D.C. to New York. I was going to pitch to an investor that I wanted to invest in a company that I was starting. And my niece called me and said, I have taken out a payday loan, and I know I'm not going to be able to pay it back. So what I'm hoping is that you can lend me the money, that I can then pay you back, and that way I won't get caught in this trap, in this payday loan situation. And so I did it, and it turns out that exactly what she was facing was what I was wanting to build. The company that I wanted to build was focused on offering traditional credit to underserved consumers who were challenged with access to the financial system. And that inspiration, right, and that reminder with that phone call from her was clearly the boost that I needed, because it was that pitch that ultimately led that investor on that I pitched to that day ended up putting $40 million of equity into my company, right? And off I went to go and issue this product and prove the case, and prove that not only did I see the risk of lending money to my niece differently, but also that I could build an entire company that would think about risk differently, that would think about those consumers, those individuals, that there's a person behind that story. And that is true in every single instance, and that creating an on-ramp for people to reemerge and reintegrate into the financial system was an important risk worth taking. I came to doing that work at FS Card after having spent a long career in various sectors looking at the financial picture. I'd been in large corporate, right, and where I learned that the vested interest of corporations, right, where the profit motive really drives the interest in solutions at scale, the interest in efficiency, the interest in driving to an end goal as quickly and immediately as possible, is an incredibly valuable tool. And corporations harness that all day, every day to drive what they do. And I spent some time as a regulator, right? I helped start a federal regulatory agency called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, where I learned that establishing the rules of the road and ensuring that everybody was playing by those same rules was a critically important part of ensuring that we had a level playing field. That if you're a payday lender or some other kind of alternative provider and you think you're living in some kind of a regulatory arbitrage, or you're in a corner of the market that's not subject to regulation, that creates the conditions for a system that replicates itself, that keeps people out. And that regulators have the same opportunity to use the breadth, right? Regulators are writing rules at the federal level that apply to 330 million people, and making sure that those rules are crafted as equitably and broadly as possible. You can't take a scalpel when you're working at that scale, but the opportunity and the importance of establishing rules of the road and leveling that playing field was paramount, and that became very clear. And now, right, many of you may know me in my role as President and Chief Operating Officer at the Skoll Foundation, where we also have a set of tools at our disposal, right? We bring not just our grant-making capital, but we have the opportunity, and I think this is something that this audience is well-versed in, we have the opportunity to bring the totality of our assets to bear on the situation, that we can look at what it means for us to use our endowment dollars, for us to take more risk with our grant dollars and make program-related investments, that there are spaces for us to really help drive to closure some of the unwillingness to take risk. And so instead to think about this as the opportunity, right? And what does that mean? And what I am challenging us all to do, and what I've learned on my own journey across all these sectors, is that when we all work together, we can drive real change in this arena. When we bring all the tools of each of these areas to the table, when we have entrepreneurs, when we have civil society and philanthropy, when we have the private sector, when we have the public sector all working together in unison, the chances that these systems that we all engage with, I happen to give an example of the financial system, but it's across the board. We just heard an example about the food system, that those systems change when all of these tools are harnessed to drive change, when we all work from where we are, right? And that when the vested interest in the corporate sector, when the breadth and scale of the public sector, with the willingness to take risk and prove a concept in the entrepreneurial space, and when philanthropy activates all of the tools at its disposal, that's when we can get these systems to change, right? And the systems, I think, as described well in the prior talk, are designed to replicate themselves without some kind of intervention. But one intervention isn't going to do it. It's going to require multiple. And so that's what we're trying to depict here. So I will close this off with just a little prompt for all of you and a way of thinking about this that helps you not get overwhelmed, right, with the scale of what we're talking about. So when I look at sort of where we are, and I borrow an analogy from the nautical space, right? Our people that spend time on the water will probably know this well. I don't spend time on the water. I don't have a boat. I don't go out, so I'm out of my depth here. See what I did there with depth? But what I know, borrowing from the nautical space, is that you don't have to turn your ship or shift your boat by 90 or 180 degrees, right? If you chart a course from where you are right now and just shift by 3 degrees, and you do that consistently, over time, you will end up in an entirely different place. So that's what I invite all of you to do, is where you are, what you do, based on what you have at your disposal, just shift by 3 degrees. Take a little bit more risk, and know that you have a counterpart in other sectors doing the same. And if we all do that, just that little bit, we will all get to a completely different set of systems that govern our lives. Thank you.